Hello, my friends. We are back again at the best podcast. Never seen a better one in my life type of podcast. Hitler's fatal relationship. Eva Braun, the princess of the Third Reich, or the beauty of the Third Reich, she was called. That's our episode today. So we have some sort of a main figure of the Third Reich. Eva Braun. She was really in the end, yes, for a couple of hours, she was the wife of the Führer. Eva Braun had no official titles. Yet journalists gave her many labels. Sometimes she was called the beauty of the Third Reich. At other times, Hitler's secret wife. Occasionally, even the Iron Lady. Yeah, we know that Margaret Thatcher was called the Iron Lady in the 80s when I was a little bit younger. Yeah, but she was often also referred or called simply as Hitler's mistress. Yeah, because this was her maybe main function. She is undoubtedly the most famous woman connected to Hitler's life, and many believe she was his only real relationship, while the rest were merely superficial acquaintances. Yeah, one can even say that maybe she was the most famous woman also in the Third Reich. When you ask somebody on the street, do you know a woman from the Third Reich? It's maybe the only one people came in mind. They will say, yes, I know Eva Braun, or I heard of Eva Braun, and so on. So she is something like the Julius Caesar of the Third Reich in the label of who is who. Yes, so that's the introduction. Walter Langer, our psychologist, who undertook the psychological analysis of Hitler for the Americans in World War II. He wrote strikingly little about this relationship the two had, Hitler and Eva Braun. They had a relationship, and a long one. I would even say far too little. Therefore, I will now try to shed somewhat more light on the matter. Yet she is no exception. It is astonishing how little we actually know about this woman. On the one hand, Hitler ensured that all personal documents and letters were destroyed before his death. So, some days before his death, when he was still in the Führerbunker, he said to his adjutant, go to the places where my documents are in Bavaria and get them destroyed. And that is the reason that also I don't know, love letters or letters Hitler and Eva Braun wrote to each other. There were a lot of letters, and they are all lost. Yeah, we have some fragments, we have some letters maybe who were written to somebody else from Eva Braun and so on, and that's everything we have. We mostly rely on testimonies from the Berghof circle. Der Berghofkreis, the Berghof was Hitler's residence in the Bavarian Alps south of Munich. Yes, we have some evidence from Albert Speer, who were a lot of time in present when Hitler and Eva Braun were like in private. And we have not a lot, we have some testimonies from Hitler's secretaries like Traudl Junge and Christa Schröder. Traudl Junge and Christa Schröder both wrote like memoirs, and there is quite a lot of about the relationship Hitler had with women. Both Traudl Junge and Christa Schröder wrote about mistresses, about relationships, how he treated them, and a lot of details we find them. As well as we have some photographs and films. Everybody knows the films Eva Braun shot. They are also on YouTube, or I don't know, when documentaries are made about this relationship, they are showing like Eva Braun filming on the Berghof. It was one of her hobbies. At the end, she worked like as an assistant to a photographer at the beginning. This was the beginning of her career, so she had some experience with photographing, and she photographed and took films. She did not wrote memoirs, so we don't have like memoirs from Eva Braun. The thing is that maybe she even didn't had the opportunity. I don't know why she didn't. She don't have the opportunity because she was dead before she came to an age when one writes memoirs. It would took place after the war, like many others did. A few years ago, in 2010, a German historian, Heike Görtemarker, published a book about the relationship between Eva Braun and Adolf Hitler. It was called Eva Braun Leben mit Hitler in German. The English is Life with Hitler. 2010, about 380 pages around. When I worked in the Netherlands 2 years ago, I took this book out of the library in Wageningen where I lived. I borrowed the Dutch edition and I read it quite with great pleasure. It is a book you read it's an easy book and quite nice to read. And but it has also some I think there are positive sides and negative sides like every book. The book is an easy read, as I said, written in a more journalistic style. So it's not the classical historian style with a lot of million of footnotes. It's quite more journalistic, like storytelling. It emphasized accessibility and readability. It had to be also saleable, I think, to be sailed, this book. For this reason, as critics have also noted, it cannot be considered a full-scale biography. So this book is not a biography of Eva Braun in a sense like we find biographies, for example, on Heinrich Himmler, written by Peter Longerich, like it's or about Joseph Goebbels, also Peter Longerich, and we have some other interesting biographies. This is not the type. The reason is simple. There is simply not enough usable sources about Eva Braun, and it's maybe not the problem that Eva Görtemarker didn't wrote a biography. She had not enough material. It's difficult to write a really good biography when you don't have enough material. Like, for example, we have a lot of material over Heinrich Himmler, over Rudolf Hess and so on, because they documented a lot of things. They wrote a lot of letters and so on, and then it's easier to write a biography. On the other hand, the topic Eva Braun appeals to many female readers who otherwise might not be interested on this Third Reich. When you see statistics, it's about 70 or maybe even 80% males who are listening to my podcasts or podcasts like things World War II, Third Reich, and so it's not really the woman style. But Eva Braun, it's maybe like something relationships. This could be maybe interesting also for women. If we have to summarize the book about Eva Braun, we can say that Görtemarker depicts Eva Braun as more determined and more intelligent than it is often claimed. That is an interesting thing that she emphasized also, that Eva Braun was not the stupid mistress, like only. We must not forget that Eva Braun fiercely competed with the wives and girlfriends of top Nazi leaders. This is also emphasized in the book. And this is not so easy. So you have to be intelligent. If you're a stupid goose, you could not compete with them. As well as with various women who tried to get closer to Hitler in any way, because he was the pop star of the regime, and so she managed had a long relationship with Hitler without others interfering. Yeah, mainly. Martin Bormann, for instance, who is often portrayed as the lurking pit bull in the background, the man who pushed himself forward until he became Hitler's right hand. He is, for example, somebody who was always around Hitler, and despite of this fact that Eva Braun, that like Martin Bormann was like a bodyguard of Hitler, always around, Eva Braun managed to have this relationship. At the top of the Nazi hierarchy, true battles were fought for raw power. Yeah, nothing special, I think, in every political system, and it could be also in a democratic system. It is the politics, they fight through powers. It is normal. We had Himmler, the Reichsführer von the SS. We have Goebbels, the propaganda minister, Göring, the big Reichsminister, the number two in the Reich. We have Bormann, the right hand of Hitler, the secretary. We have Speer, the chief architect and best friend of Hitler. We can also call him like that. All wrestled for influence. These figures were always present and always tried to push and to make intrigues and so on. And Eva Braun would be somebody who everybody wants to be like, yeah, put on the side. And then there was the Berghof circle, the so-called Berghof Kreis in German, the circle of people, of private people, of friends who Hitler, with them Hitler spent time on his residence. And this was also a possibility for these people to be physically close to Hitler. This means spending all day together, like going in the woods or outside drinking tea somewhere on the terrace, or sitting by the fireplace with him, accompanying him to the tea house, and so on. So that was a possibility to get close to the Führer himself. This circle, yes, also held significant influence. That is also when you want to have to push a political decision or something, you want to push something, then this was the right place to go. This was the place where you could maybe get contact with Hitler and get pushed your things through. Yeah, this was the Berghof circle, and in the Berghof circle, Eva Braun was also present. This circle also held significant influence, and Eva Braun could easily become trapped within it. Though not excessively detailed, Gertemarker's book nonetheless reveals a tragic relationship, and we can call it a tragic one. And also in this book, we see that the relationship between Eva Braun and Hitler had a tragic side. Eva Braun entered into a fatal bond marked by loneliness and despair. Yet at the same time, there is the colorful, carefree young woman seen in the photos on the movies, sporty, cheerful, confident, skiing, making sports at the Berghof, playing with Hitler's dogs, taking pictures, playing with the little children who were there on the Berghof. But in the end, she remained the woman in the background always. Someone Hitler took out from time to time like an old toy from a dusty box. That is my formulation. Over the years, however, she still managed to achieve something close to an official status. This was the achievement. She was Hitler's most visible partner at the end. Wherever possible, she lived with him either in her own apartment or at the Berghof in Berchtesgaden. Yes.